Well, we're still working on the railroad. And, I started a few weeks ago just laying these 12 feet of track. And, well, it's taking quite a while.
Oh, I imagine.
This is the holdup right here, this switch. This is just kind of a schematic track plan. This is a more accurate version. And it's this switch right here that separates the line that goes over to the turntable versus the one that goes out to the switching yard, the yard lead.
Oh, neat.
Now, you wouldn't think that it would take all that long to build a turnout.
Well, everything takes longer than you expect, though.
Well, and the thing is, I'm enjoying the build.
Oh, nice.
And isn't that what it's all about,
Yep,
really?
it is.
So I've been working on this switch now for like, I don't know, 3 weeks. But the way I look at it, I've been sort of privileged to work on it for 3 weeks. Because if it's fun to do, what the heck?
Right, it's winter. There's not much else going on.
So here's my process on this, and I mentioned this on a previous video. I'm actually using an old Yagas Creek number 6 switch. I have a bunch of these that used to be out in the yard, aluminum rail and so on, and they're very, very old and they show the ravages of time. But I'm just using it as a template. I'm also salvaging the frog and the points off of one of these guys. But mostly right now I'm just using it as a template so that I can mark out exactly on my my soundboard here where everything is going to go. Most critical is the position of the frog, so I've marked that out very carefully right here. I've also gone through and sanded down to make sure I don't have any bumps here, get rid of any little irregularities in the seams, and also mark out exactly the position of the other rails. As we mentioned on the video about setting the ties, the next step was to get the ties all set in place, which they are. Then with the Yagas Creek switch in place, I just wanted to check clearances by rolling a reefer car through. Anyway, it's fun, isn't it? Again, as we mentioned on the previous video, when we were setting the ties, we also went through to talk about the names of the different components. These long rails here are the head blocks, and they're going to be very important to what we're doing now. And then we have 4 regular length ties. From this point on, all of the ties are cut to custom lengths in groups of 4, getting longer and longer as we go through the switch, all the way out past the position of the frog. At the frog location, I'm actually tightening up the ties a little bit, getting them a little bit closer together, because I want to make sure that the frog is very, very well anchored. And I want to make sure that everything is as square and accurate as I can get it. I'm also making sure that the ties I'm using here are very robust because I don't want spikes coming loose. That would be a disaster. Periodically, I'm setting the Yagas Creek switch on top of what I'm doing in order to make sure that I'm not delusional and that everything is lining up to exactly where it's supposed to be. And again, when we get to this point, we go back to regular length ties that overlap in this area that I called the zipper. One of the commenters last week said, well, they would never do that on a real railroad. Well, on a Class A railroad, probably not, because you can't really tamp ballast down in here. But on the narrow gauge, I've seen them build entire switches up this way. I mean, that's pretty sketchy, but that's the narrow gauge railroad for you. It is sketchy. They do some pretty strange things. Make do with what you've got. At any rate, with the ties down and stained, I'm ready to start spiking my rails in place and building up my switch. The very first thing that I'm going to do is lay my straight stock rail. Because if I set the frog first, I used to set the frog first back when I was doing HO, and a lot of times I ended up with a slight bow in the straight stock rail here because the frog was just slightly off from where it should be. So now I like to lay the straight stock rail first, making sure that it's absolutely straight, and then place my frog, engage with that, and then place my curved stock rail, engage with the frog. The curved stock rail is curved from this point where I've marked it with a Sharpie all the way down to this point. The radius changes slightly at the very end, and then from that point on it's straight again. It's tangent to that curve. Now fortunately I don't have to just sort of freelance that curve laying it over my template. I've actually got an old Yagas Creek rail bender they made these years ago, and I'm fortunate enough to have one of them. And this can be used to add a little bit of curvature at a time, placing that over my template until I get the exact right curvature. This isn't something where you can set it to a specific curvature. You just keep adding more and more curvature until you get the curvature that you want. But it creates a nice uniform curvature, and I can take it from the mark on the rail all the way down to the other mark on the rail, from tangent to tangent, and just add the curve in between those 2 points. And again, the curvature gets slightly less as you get down into the area of the points or blades. And then at the very tip of the point here, there's going to be a slight kink in the rail. That's the easiest way to get a really positive point closure on the curved stock rail. So I've marked that point right here, and you can see how it would be advantageous if there was just a slight kink here to take the tangent track parallel to the other rails. And that ensures a really good point closure right here. So I'm placing the rail in my vise right at that mark, and then very carefully adding just a little bit of a kink in there, and then take it into the other room and compare it to the template marked out on the roadbed until I have just the perfect amount of kink right there. You'd hardly even notice it, but just this little tiny bit of kink right there, and you can see how nicely now the points tuck right up in there. I also need to have a matching amount of curve in one of the sets of points, the blades. The other one has to be absolutely perfectly straight. So I'm double checking this one to be straight and that it will tuck up neatly up into the little kink in the rail. And then the opposing blade, the opposing point rail, has to match the curvature that I've put in the curved stock rail. So I'm just going to set that up on top of the other rail and then very carefully bend that by hand until the curvatures match. This closure is a lot more tricky than the other one. You don't have the little kink in the rail, and everything has to match up absolutely perfectly. Moreover, as a train is coming through here, the wheels are moving toward the outside. The geometry is forcing the wheels to the outside and up against these points. And so the slightest little irregularity here will result in your train picking these points, riding up over the point and derailing. Commercially available switches usually have a notch right here for the points to tuck up into. The prototype railroad doesn't do that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to try to make this work exactly like it would work on a prototype switch. You can see that the points on the prototype have been shaped so that they fit neatly up into the web of the rail. Moreover, look at all the wear and tear from the wheels pounding into the ends of these points on the outside part of the switch. They really take a pounding. Anyway, with all of my component parts all figured out and laying in place, I like to sort of snap the frog in place with some of these micro-engineering plastic gauges, and then double check to make sure that my straight stock rail is perfectly straight and in position, and then spike it in place. Again, I'm using tie plates under the rail at every single tie, so those have to be put in place before the spikes are driven in. What I like to do is just spike every other tie loosely to make sure that I'm not getting anything crooked or weird here. Also, sometimes these tie plates fall off and they need to be slid back in place, and if I've tightly spiked anything down, then I can't get the tie plates under there. So I just push the spikes most of the way in at this point. I have also screwed up here. These spikes have to be pulled up. I shouldn't be spiking anything down opposite the frog because this is where my guardrails are going to go, and I can't have tie plates or spikes in place, or I can't place my guardrails later on. At this point, I'm ready to spike the frog in place, but there's a couple of things I need to do with this frog before I put it in place. I'm going to be using an isolated frog. It won't be connected electrically to any of the other rails, so it needs to have a jumper lead soldered to it. Moreover, it needs to have plastic insulators placed at both ends of the frog. The frog and points that I've salvaged from one of my old aluminum rail Yagas Creek switches was designed for live steam, and there was no need to isolate anything. And so the fish plates here are cast right into the frog, and that will electrically connect the frog to the closure rail, and I can't have that. So I'm going to have to grind out these cast-in fish plates and replace those with plastic insulators. And then I'm going to have to drill into the bottom of the frog and solder a lead here to bring power up from a frog juicer, a little electrical circuit that'll provide power to the frog. There'll be more on that when we talk about wiring the switch. And now that I know exactly where that lead comes down, I have to drill a hole to take the jumper wire down through the benchwork. Of course, that ended up being right on a tie. So anyway, I had to drill a hole down through the tie and the roadbed and the underlayment here all the way through to the bottom of the layout. Okay, now the problem of these cast-in connecting plates, fish plates, that connect the frog to the closure rails. Again, if I were powering the closure rails through the frog, which you can do on some types of switch wiring, but in this case, my frogs are going to be completely isolated and on their own circuit, and so that has to be replaced with a plastic insulator here. This still looks like the fish plates, but it's made of plastic. Two of my salvaged frogs actually have one of those plates broken off already, so I may as well use one of those because, well, they're already broken off. So I need to carve away the remaining three so that none of the plates that extend past the frog are present. And then I need to grind away the section where the fish plate is cast into the frog because the insulator needs to slide up into that section. So I need to reduce that down so that I can slide the plastic insulator up onto the frog. And that requires quite a bit of carving with my rotary tool here. And then at that point I can slide these plastic insulators up onto the frog. And then there's a little bit more cleaning and trimming. The little blades on the insulated frogs don't want to set down in there, so it still takes a bit of cutting and hacking to get everything to fit just right. But eventually I was able to isolate the frog with plastic insulators at both ends of the frog. Now, as I mentioned before, it's entirely possible to have your closure rails electrically connected to the frog, and therefore your points also electrically connected to the frog. And I used to, on my HO railroad, that's how the whole thing was set up. But I can't do that here because I'm using these metal point slide braces that short the points to the stock rails. And so if I electrically connect all of this center section together, then the whole thing's going to be shorted out. And so that's why I'm completely isolating just the frog, and then I'll be powering the frog separately through a frog juicer. I can now permanently set my frog in place. I noticed that I double spike the frog because I really don't want it moving around. So 2 spikes on each side on each tie, and then I can start spiking my curved stock rail in place by checking gauge against the frog, and then placing my tie plates and spiking the curved stock rail in place. Now again, I can't spike this where it's directly opposite the frog because that's where the guardrail is going to go. I'm just going to spike it for a few ties back in either direction before and after the frog. And then I will come back and spike the rest of the curved stock rail once I have the closure rails cut out. So let's go ahead and cut out the 2 closure rails. These are the rails that go from the frog over to the points. One of the 2 rails has to be curved, of course, the curved closure rail, and has to have the exact same radius as the curved stock rail. So before cutting that out, I'm going to bend that in my rail bender and very carefully match the curvature of the curved stock rail. And now I can set that rail in place and mark a position here where it meets the frog, and then go ahead here with my cutoff wheel and just cut this off to length. Now, because I'm using an isolated frog, the closure rails and the points will have to be electrically connected to the stock rails. So I'm going to solder a jumper wire to the bottom of each stock rail as I create that, and then run a wire down through that will simply connect to the red and black bus underneath the railroad. And now with the various components all cut out and in place, I can go through here and actually spike everything down for real. In a few places I have to remove a spike and make a small adjustment, but at this point I can go through and actually put four spikes per tie and get everything locked in place because all of the components are here. Well, we have so much more to cover. We're going to be picking this up right here next week as we finish the switch, putting in guardrails and adjusting the points and setting the switch stand. Oh, there's just so much more to do. Part of this is wiring for the electrical, which includes wiring for the lights for the coaling tower.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
And isn't that just one of the funnest things when the lights come on?
Oh, I love it.
So anyway, hopefully you're all going to want to follow along with that. And therefore, I would hope that you're a subscriber to the channel and maybe even consider joining as a member. But if you're not a subscriber, at the very least, please hit the upcoming subscribe button right here, the blue button. Zoink! Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and we will see you here on Tuesday.
We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.